Lily hated Mondays. Not in the cute, relatable way people joked about in old Earth memes. No, she hated Mondays with the burning intensity of 1,000 suns, which, coincidentally, was roughly how many suns were visible from the viewport of orbital station Helix 9 if you squinted hard enough and had a really generous definition of visible. She slumped in her seat, third row from the back, nursing what the station cafeteria had the audacity to call coffee. It tasted like someone had filtered motor oil through a gym sock, then added a hint of despair for flavor. Lily took another sip anyway, because she was nothing if not committed to her own suffering. Dr. Mikhail Thorne stood at the front of the lecture hall, his voice achieving that perfect monotone frequency that could put an insomniac into a coma. He was droning on about interspecies diplomatic protocols, gesticulating at a holographic display that showed various alien species and their preferred greeting customs. And remember, when encountering a Velkith delegate, you must never, under any circumstances, make direct eye contact for longer than 3 seconds, as this is considered a declaration of mortal combat. Lily's stylus moved across her tablet, but she wasn't taking notes. She was sketching a cartoon of Dr. Mikhail as a turtle, because that's what his posture reminded her of when he hunched over the podium like that. Slow, deliberate, possibly immortal, given how long this lecture felt. Around her, the classroom presented a bizarre snapshot of galactic integration. Humanity's grand entrance into the interstellar community had been, to put it mildly, awkward. Like showing up to a black tie event in sweatpants, then realizing everyone else had been wearing sweatpants for millennia, and you were just late to the party. To her left sat Dax, a human male who had the kind of confidence that could only come from never having been properly humbled by life. His family had money, the kind of money that bought orbital station real estate, and he treated this xenobiology program like a gap-year adventure rather than actual education. He was currently using his tablet to browse something that definitely wasn't lecture notes, grinning at his screen like an idiot. 2 rows ahead, Coral sat perfectly still, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the fluorescent lights. He was from an insectoid species whose name Lily could never quite pronounce without sounding like she was choking, but who were apparently renowned for their academic brilliance. Coral was brilliant, sure, but also so painfully shy that he'd once apologized to a door for walking through it. Then there was Ulix, the amphibian-looking student who never stopped complaining. Too hot, too cold, too dry, too humid. The chairs were uncomfortable. The lighting gave him headaches. The cafeteria food upset his 17 stomachs. Yes, 17. He'd counted them off once during a particularly long rant about digestive sensitivity. This was humanity's prestigious xenobiology program. This was the future of interspecies cooperation. This was, Lily thought, as she added sunglasses to her Turtle Mikhail sketch, absolutely ridiculous. She was here on scholarship, which was a fancy way of saying she was broke and smart enough that the government wanted to show off how egalitarian and forward-thinking they were. Never mind that most of her classmates came from families who could buy small moons. Never mind that she shared a dormitory pod roughly the size of a closet with another student who snored in 3 different frequencies simultaneously. No, everything was fine. Just fine. Miss Lily, perhaps you'd like to share with the class what's so fascinating on your tablet. She looked up, blinking. Dr. Mikhail was staring at her with the patient expression of someone who'd caught students not paying attention roughly 8,000 times and had long since run out of creative punishments. Just, taking detailed notes, Doctor, she said, casually swiping her screen to a blank page. About the Velkith eye contact thing. Very important stuff. Mm-hmm. He didn't believe her for a second, but apparently decided she wasn't worth the effort. As I was saying, the key to successful diplomatic relations is understanding that what seems aggressive to one species might be perfectly polite to another. A low alarm cut through his words. Everyone froze. It wasn't the sharp, piercing sound of a fire drill or the urgent wail of a decompression warning. This was different. A deep, thrumming pulse that Lily had never heard before, but somehow knew, bone deep, meant something very bad was happening. Dr. McHale's face went pale. That's probably just a malfunction. The lecture hall doors exploded inward. Not metaphorically. Actually exploded. With a bang that left Lily's ears ringing and her heart trying to escape through her throat. Smoke billowed into the room, and through it came three figures that made every terrible B-movie alien invasion film look like a documentary. Zalmoth warriors. Lily recognized them from Unit 6, the one about species classification and threat assessment. They were bipedal, standing roughly 8 feet tall, with armored exoskeletons that looked like someone had crossed a scorpion with a nightmare and given it military-grade weapons. Their faces were all mandibles and compound eyes, and they moved with the kind of predatory grace that suggested they could rip through a bulkhead as easily as tissue paper. "Nobody move!" The lead warrior's voice came through a translator unit, but even the mechanical rendering couldn't hide the threat in it. "This class is now under the protection of the Zalmoth sovereignty. You will remain seated and silent. Protection. Right. Because nothing said, 'We're here to help,' like blowing up a door and pointing plasma rifles at students. Chaos erupted immediately. Ulix made a sound like a dying accordion and fainted, his body making a wet thud as it hit the floor. Dax, Mr. Confidence himself, dove under his desk so fast he cracked his head on the underside, then stayed there, whimpering. Other students scrambled backward, some crying, some freezing in place, like deer in headlights. Coral's antennae flattened against his head, his whole body going rigid with terror. Dr. McHale raised his hands, his voice shaking but attempting authority. "Now, gentlemen, I'm sure we can discuss whatever grievance." The lead warrior, the one who'd spoken, casually backhanded him. Dr. McHale went sprawling, his tablet skittering across the floor. I said silent. The warrior, Morek, Lily's brain supplied helpfully, because apparently even in a hostage situation her memory decided to show off, scanned the room with those compound eyes. "Your Galactic Council has ignored our territorial claims for the last time. You are now leverage. Behave, and you might survive this." Might. What a comforting word. Lily's hands were shaking, coffee cup still clutched in her grip like it was the only solid thing in a tilting world. Her mind was racing, trying to process, trying to understand. This was Orbital Station Helix 9, one of the most secure academic facilities in the sector. There were protocols, security, defenses. Where were they? Morek gestured to his companions, who began moving through the aisles, corralling students toward the center of the room. One of them grabbed a student, a humanoid species Lily didn't recognize, and shoved them roughly into place. This was really happening. This wasn't a drill or a training exercise. These were actual, honest-to-God hostile aliens taking an entire class hostage. And nobody was doing anything about it. Lily waited for someone to move, someone to fight back, someone to do literally anything. But everyone just sat there, trembling and terrified and useless. Humans were supposed to be tough, right? That was the whole thing. Earth had clawed its way up from nothing, survived world wars and climate disasters, and a dozen extinction-level close calls. Humanity was scrappy, adaptable, too stupid to know when to quit. So why was everyone acting like sheep? Why wasn't anyone? Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Lily felt it rising in her chest, that familiar, terrible sensation that had gotten her into trouble her entire life. It was the same feeling that had made her talk back to her high school principal, the same one that had made her tell off a professor who'd plagiarized student work, the same one that had gotten her banned from 3 different social media platforms. It was anger, pure and simple, mixed with a healthy dose of, "Are you kidding me with this?" She was about to do something incredibly, monumentally stupid. Her mouth opened before her brain could stop it. So what? We're just supposed to sit here while you throw your tantrum? Every single eye in the room, compound, human, and otherwise, turned to stare at her. Morek's head swiveled with mechanical precision. "What did you say, human?" Lily stood up, legs shaking but somehow holding her weight. "I said, this seems like a pretty elaborate way to get attention. What's next? You gonna hold your breath until the council says you're special?" Somewhere in the back of her mind, a tiny voice was screaming about how this was a terrible idea, how she was going to get everyone killed, how she should sit down and shut up and let the professionals handle it. But the professionals weren't here. Nobody was here. Just her, a bunch of terrified students, and 3 armored warriors who apparently thought blowing up a classroom door was an acceptable negotiating tactic. Morek took a step toward her, plasma rifle rising. "You dare mock the Zolmoth sovereignty? I dare question your problem-solving skills? Yeah." Lily's voice was steadier than she felt. "You want the council to take you seriously? This isn't how you do it. This is how you get labeled terrorists and make everything worse." "Lily!" Dr. Mikhail hissed from the floor. "Stop talking!" But she couldn't. The words kept coming, fueled by adrenaline and spite and the absolute absurdity of the situation. "You know what your species' reputation is in the galaxy? Everyone knows you're warriors, sure, but they also know you're not exactly brilliant strategists. This little stunt? This is gonna confirm every stereotype." Morek's mandibles clicked together in what might have been rage. He raised the rifle, pointing it directly at her chest. "Sit! Down!" Lily's heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her teeth. But she didn't sit. Instead, she looked at him. Really looked, using every bit of knowledge she'd absorbed in those boring lectures about xenobiology and species classification. Zolmoth warriors. Armored exoskeleton, yes, but joints at the knees and elbows that were vulnerable. Compound eyes that provided excellent peripheral vision, but could be overwhelmed by sudden bright light. Translator units mounted at the throat, vulnerable to impact. Plasma rifles that required a 3-second charge time before firing, indicated by the color shift in the power cell. She'd thought Unit 6 was boring. Turned out, it might just save her life. Or get her killed spectacularly. Really could go either way at this point. "Last warning, human." Lily picked up her coffee cup, that terrible station cafeteria coffee, and took a long, deliberate sip while maintaining eye contact. "Yeah," she said. "I'll pass." Then she threw the coffee directly into Morek's compound eyes, and all hell broke loose. Morek screamed, a horrible chittering sound that came from somewhere deep in his thorax, and staggered backward, clawing at his face. The scalding liquid hadn't hurt him, not really, but compound eyes were sensitive, and sudden liquid coating them was like throwing a blanket over a camera lens. Lily didn't waste time feeling proud of herself. She grabbed the lab stool next to her desk and swung it with every ounce of strength she had at the nearest warrior's head. It connected with a satisfying crunch against his translator unit. Sparks flew, and the warrior made a garbled sound that the broken device couldn't process. He stumbled, and Lily was already moving, her body operating on pure instinct and accumulated rage. "Coral!" she shouted. "Emergency lockdown panel behind you! Hit it!" The insectoid student stared at her with all 6 of his eyes wide with shock. "Now!" His claw shot out and slammed the panel. Immediately, emergency barriers began descending over the windows, and the secondary doors sealed with a hydraulic hiss. It wouldn't keep the warriors trapped. They'd blown through the main entrance, after all. But it would slow down any reinforcements, assuming these idiots had reinforcements. The third warrior raised his rifle, the power cell beginning its telltale color shift from blue to orange. 3 seconds. Lily had 3 seconds. She didn't think. Thinking was what got you killed. Instead, she kicked over Dr. McHale's desk, grabbed the holographic projector, and hurled it at the warrior's knees. He went down hard, the rifle discharging into the ceiling with a blast that left a smoking hole in the tiles. Emergency sprinklers activated, raining down on everyone. "Is anyone else going to help? Or are we just doing statue impressions?" Lily yelled at the room. That broke the spell. Dax, still under his desk, finally seemed to remember he had a spine somewhere in his body. He grabbed his tablet and threw it at the warrior Lily had hit with the stool. It bounced off the armor harmlessly, but it distracted him long enough for Coral to dart forward and, in a move that surprised everyone, including himself, tackle the warrior's legs. Coral's species might have been timid, but they had natural armor plating that made them surprisingly effective battering rams. The warrior went down, and Coral immediately scuttled away, looking shocked at his own actions. Morek had cleared his eyes enough to see again, and he was furious. He charged at Lily with a roar that rattled her teeth, mandibles spread wide. Lily dove to the side, hit the wet floor, slid further than she meant to, and crashed into the chemical supply cabinet. Glass vials rattled ominously. Her hand shot out on instinct, grabbing the first thing she touched, a canister of something labeled decontamination foam. Caution, pressurized. Good enough. She yanked the safety pin and sprayed it directly into Morek's face as he lunged at her. Thick, expanding foam erupted from the canister, coating his head and upper body. He stumbled, clawing at the rapidly hardening substance that was filling his breathing spiracles. Lily rolled away, her mind cataloging everything she could use. The sprinklers were still going. The emergency lighting had kicked in, bathing everything in red. The gravity controls panel was on the far wall, installed for species who needed different gravity settings. An idea, terrible, insane, probably suicidal, formed in her head. She ran for the panel. The warrior with the broken translator recovered faster than she'd hoped and grabbed her ankle. Lily hit the ground face first, tasting blood, her vision swimming. He dragged her backward, his grip like iron. "Ulix!" she screamed at the amphibian student, who'd regained consciousness and was watching the chaos with bulging eyes. "You complain about the gravity every single day. You know how that panel works." What? The panel. Crank it to maximum." Understanding dawned on his face. He scrambled toward the wall, his webbed fingers flying over the controls. The gravity in the room instantly tripled. Everyone not prepared for it dropped like stones. The warriors, with their heavy armor and weapons, went down hardest. Lily felt like someone had stacked 3 of her on top of herself, every breath a struggle, but she'd braced for it. The warrior's grip on her ankle loosened just enough. She twisted, kicked him in what she really hoped was a sensitive area. Xenobiology courses covered a lot. but not always the specifics, and he released her with a wheeze. Lily crawled, every movement feeling like she was dragging a truck toward the emergency equipment locker. Her fingers found the panel, punched in the override code that every student had been required to memorize. Inside were emergency suits, medical supplies, and, thank every deity humanity had ever invented, emergency restraint cables. She grabbed a bundle and crawled back toward Morak, who was still struggling with the foam on his head and the crushing gravity. Up close, she could see the joints in his armor, the places where the plates met. She'd paid attention during that lecture, the one about Zolmoth anatomy. There were pressure points at the base of the skull, where the exoskeleton met the spinal column. Apply enough force there, and it triggered a paralytic reflex. A defense mechanism, ironically, meant to protect them from their own prey fighting back. Lily had never actually tried it, never thought she'd need to. She pressed her thumb into the spot, hard as she could, with the increased gravity making every movement agony. Marek went rigid, his limbs locking up. Working fast, Lily wrapped the restraint cables around his arms and legs, using every knot her brief stint in Earth's mandatory survival training had taught her. The cables were designed to hold in place during station emergencies, to keep people from floating away during decompression. They'd hold a Zolmoth warrior. Probably. Hopefully. "Dax!" she gasped, the gravity making it hard to breathe. "Other two! Now!" To his credit, Dax had finally found his courage somewhere in the chaos. He and 3 other students, 2 humanoids and 1 blob-like species that moved by rolling, converged on the remaining warriors. It wasn't pretty, and it definitely wasn't dignified, but with the gravity working, against the heavily armored Zolmoth, sheer numbers won out. More restraint cables, more pressure points. Lily coached them through it, her voice hoarse, her body screaming in protest. When the last warrior was secured, Lily crawled back to the gravity panel and adjusted it to normal. The relief was immediate and dizzying. She lay on the wet floor, staring at the ceiling with its smoking hole, and started laughing. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all. Her, a broke scholarship student, taking down 3 Zolmoth warriors with coffee, cleaning foam, and spite, was too much. "Is she okay?" someone whispered. "I think she's having a breakdown," Ulick said. "I'm fine," Lily managed between gasps. "Just, processing the fact that I'm either getting expelled or promoted." The door, the intact secondary door, finally opened. Station security poured in, weapons drawn, looking ready for a fight, and finding instead a room full of soaking wet students, 3 tied-up warriors, and Lily lying on the floor like she'd just finished a marathon. The security chief, a grizzled human named Dmitri, surveyed the scene with an expression that cycled through confusion, shock, and something that might have been impressed. "What?" he said slowly. "Happened here?" Lily raised one hand weakly. "Defended the class. You're welcome. Can I go back to sleep now?" She couldn't, of course. There were statements to give, medical checks to endure, and roughly 1,000 questions to answer. But through it all, she noticed something odd. Students were filming. Their devices had been recording the whole thing. Dax looked at his tablet, his face pale. Lily? This is already on the galactic net." "What?" "The fight. Someone's feed was live. It's going viral." Lily groaned and let her head fall back against the floor. This was going to be a problem. Lily woke up to the sound of her personal comm device screaming for mercy. Not literally screaming, but the sheer volume of notifications pouring in made it sound like a swarm of angry bees had taken up residence in her nightstand. She cracked one eye open, immediately regretted consciousness, and tried to remember why every muscle in her body felt like it had been put through a meat grinder. Oh, right. The hostage situation. The warriors. The whole becoming a viral sensation across multiple star systems thing. She grabbed her comm with a groan and made the mistake of checking her messages. 238,000 unread notifications. Oh, come on, she muttered, scrolling through the chaos. Interview requests from news outlets she'd never heard of. Sponsorship offers from companies selling everything from protein supplements to personal defense weapons. Marriage proposals, at least 20 from species she couldn't even pronounce. One message claimed to be from a Zolmoth warlord demanding honorable combat to restore his clan's reputation. Another offered her a reality show deal. Humanity's official diplomatic corps had sent her 16 increasingly frantic messages asking her to please, for the love of everything, stop responding to random journalists until they could coordinate a proper statement. Too late for that. Lily had already told 3 different reporters that she'd just been really tired and really angry, which apparently translated across the galactic net as humans are terrifyingly casual about mortal combat. She pulled up the video that Dax had mentioned. Someone, probably multiple someones, had been streaming when everything went down. The footage was shaky, the angle terrible, but it captured everything. Her throwing coffee, the stool swing, the desperate scramble through chemical supplies and gravity manipulation. In the video, she looked absolutely unhinged, hair wild, expression fierce, moving with a kind of reckless determination that read as either bravery or insanity, depending on your perspective. The comments section was a nightmare in 6,000 languages. Is this what humans consider normal behavior? New species just dropped, and they're terrifying. I'm never picking a fight with a human student. She took down 3 Zolmoth warriors with coffee and cleaning supplies. Humans are space orcs confirmed. That last one had been upvoted 8 million times. Her door chimed. Lily seriously considered pretending she was dead, but the chime came again, more insistent. Miss Lily, this is Commander Dmitri. We need to talk. She dragged herself out of bed, threw on the least wrinkled shirt she could find, and opened the door to find not just Dmitri, but also Dr. Mikhail, sporting a beautiful black eye, and 2 people in the crisp uniforms of Earth's diplomatic service. Well, she said, this looks official and terrifying. You have no idea, the taller diplomat said. Her name tag read, Hugo. We need you to come with us, now. Am I under arrest? Quite the opposite. The shorter diplomat, Theo, said, with a grin that was probably meant to be reassuring but mostly looked manic. You're being summoned to testify before the Galactic Council. Lily blinked. I'm sorry. What? The video has reached every corner of known space, Hugo explained as they hustled her through the station's corridors. The Zolmoth sovereignty is demanding an inquiry into the incident. Other species are demanding explanations about human capabilities. Earth's government wants to leverage this for better standing in the Council. It's a whole diplomatic mess, and you're at the center of it. I just didn't want to get shot, Lily protested. That's not a political statement. Everything is political when you're representing your species, Theo said cheerfully. Welcome to galactic citizenship. It's terrible, and you'll hate it. At least he was honest. The Galactic Council convened on a massive station called Nexus Prime, which orbited a neutron star and looked like someone had designed a building using only chrome and impossible geometry. Lily had seen pictures in her textbooks, but being here in person was something else entirely. The council chamber was vast, with seating for representatives from hundreds of species arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Each section was environmentally controlled for different atmospheric needs, creating a dizzying patchwork of bubbles, mists, and light levels. Lily stood on the central platform, feeling like a particularly small bug under a very large microscope. The High Arbiter, a being named Domek from a quadrupedal species whose homeworld Lily couldn't remember, presided over the proceedings. He was ancient, his hide covered in ceremonial markings, his four eyes radiating an intelligence that made her feel like he could read her thoughts. "Miss Lily," his voice resonated through the chamber's translation system, "you stand before the Council to provide testimony regarding the incident at Orbital Station Helix 9. Do you understand the gravity of this proceeding?" "I'm getting a pretty good sense of it. Yeah," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The Zolmoth ambassador, a massive warrior even larger than Morek, rose from his section. This human violated the sanctity of a legitimate political action. She injured our warriors and humiliated our sovereignty. We demand retribution. Legitimate political action? Lily couldn't help herself. You blew up a door and threatened to kill students. That's not politics. That's terrorism. A murmur ran through the chamber. Hugo, sitting in the Earth delegation section, made a cutting motion across her throat that probably meant, "Stop talking." But Lily was on a roll. "With respect, Arbiter Domek, I was defending myself and my classmates. We're students, not soldiers. We weren't armed. We weren't a threat. Those warriors made us hostages for leverage, and nobody was coming to help us." She turned to face the Zolmoth delegation. "If your sovereignty is so fragile that 3 of your warriors getting defeated by 1 unarmed student is humiliating, maybe the problem isn't me." The chamber erupted. Some species were clicking in approval, others hissing in disapproval, and at least one delegation seemed to be applauding, though they didn't have hands, so it was more of a rhythmic thumping. Domek raised one massive foreleg, and silence fell immediately. "The Council will note the human's testimony," he said carefully. "However, this raises questions about humanity as a whole. Your species is new to galactic society. This incident suggests capabilities that were not properly documented during your integration assessment." Another representative stood, a reptilian species Lily recognized as Kelthian. "We must know. Is this behavior typical of humans? Are you all capable of such violence?" Lily thought about it, about Earth's history, about every war and conflict and stupid fight humanity had ever engaged in, about her own life, growing up in a rough neighborhood, learning early that sometimes you had to stand up or get knocked down. "Humans are complicated," she said finally. "We're not naturally violent, but we're not naturally peaceful either. We adapt. We survive. When we're backed into a corner, we fight. Sometimes with weapons, sometimes with whatever's available, sometimes with just stubbornness and spite." She shrugged. "I didn't want to fight those warriors. I wanted to finish my terrible coffee and take notes on diplomatic protocols, but they didn't give me that option." "So humans are a warrior species," the Zolmoth ambassador said coldly. "No," Lily shot back. "We're a survival species. There's a difference. Warriors fight for honor or conquest or tradition. We fight when we have to, with whatever we have, because the alternative is giving up. And humans are really, really bad at giving up." Domek's eyes studied her for a long moment. "Your actions have created a significant shift in how the galaxy perceives humanity. Whether you intended it or not, you have become a symbol." "I really didn't mean to," Lily said weakly. "Intent is irrelevant. Consequence is what matters." Domek settled back on his haunches. The Council will deliberate on the Zolmoth complaint. In the meantime, you will remain available for further testimony. The session was adjourning when it happened. An explosion rocked the chamber. Lily hit the deck on instinct, her ears ringing. Smoke billowed from one of the upper galleries, and through it came figures in dark armor. Not Zolmoth, something else, something she didn't recognize. Security alarms blared. Delegates screamed and scrambled for exits, and one of the attackers was aiming a weapon directly at Domik. Lily's brain didn't consult with her body. It just moved. She launched herself off the platform, sprinting toward the High Arbiter with no plan beyond, "Get there first." The weapon discharged. Lily hit Domik with her full weight, which, granted, wasn't much compared to a quadrupedal being the size of a small vehicle, and they both went tumbling. Energy scorched through the space where Domik's head had been, leaving a smoking crater in the wall. Station security converged on the attackers, weapons blazing. The fight was brief and brutal. The attackers were subdued, dragged away, still struggling. Lily lay on the polished floor, again, wondering why this kept happening to her. Domik's massive head loomed over her, all four eyes wide. "You saved my life," he said, sounding genuinely shocked. "Yeah, well," Lily wheezed. "Seemed rude to let you get shot while I was right there." "You didn't hesitate. You didn't think. You simply acted. Story of my life, honestly. It's gotten me in trouble before, but this time it worked out." Domik made a sound that the translator rendered as thoughtful humming. "The Council has been debating humanity's place in galactic society. We have questioned your species' worthiness, your capabilities, your potential, contribution." His eyes gleamed with something that might have been respect. "I believe we have our answer. Because I tackled you? Because when danger presented itself, your first instinct was not self-preservation. It was protection of another." He stood, offering her a foreleg to help her up. "Perhaps humans are exactly what the galaxy needs." Lily took the offered help, her legs shaky. Around them, the chamber was in chaos. Delegates being evacuated, security locking down sections, medical teams rushing to check for injuries. Hugo and Theo appeared at her side, looking like they'd aged a decade in the past 5 minutes. "You just saved the High Arbiter of the Galactic Council," Hugo said faintly. "I noticed," Lily replied. "Twice in 1 week," Theo added. "You've defended your classmates and the Council's highest authority. Do you understand what this means?" Honestly, Lily had no idea. She was running on adrenaline fumes and desperately needed a nap that would last approximately 6 months. But judging from the way every delegate in the chamber was staring at her, some with awe, some with fear, some with calculation, she was pretty sure her life was never going to be normal again. "It means I'm going to need better coffee," she said. 3 months later, Lily stood in front of a mirror in what the government insisted on calling her official residence, and tried not to laugh at her own reflection. She was wearing formal diplomatic attire, custom-made, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than her entire scholarship had been. Her hair had been professionally styled by someone who charged by the minute. She looked like a completely different person. She hated it. "You ready?" Theo called from outside her door. He'd been assigned as her permanent liaison, which was a fancy way of saying babysitter. She'd grown to like him, mostly because he was honest about how absurd everything had become. "Define ready," Lily said, adjusting her collar for the 15th time. "If you mean physically present and breathing, then sure. If you mean emotionally prepared for whatever nightmare awaits me today, then absolutely not." "Good enough." Theo grinned as she opened the door. "Besides, this one should actually be fun. Earth's government is making it official." The ceremony took place in Geneva, in the same hall where the old United Nations used to convene, back when humanity thought their biggest problems were limited to one planet. How naive they'd been! The chamber was packed. Representatives from every major Earth nation. Live feeds broadcasting to billions across the planet and beyond. And enough cameras to make Lily's skin crawl. The Secretary General, a stern woman named Indira, who'd somehow maintained her sanity while representing humanity to a galaxy of aliens who considered Earth's political structures adorably primitive, stood at the podium. We are here today to recognize an individual whose actions have fundamentally altered humanity's standing in the galactic community, Indira began, her voice carrying weight. An individual who, through courage and quick thinking, demonstrated the very best of what our species can be. Lily stood off to the side, trying to look dignified and mostly succeeding in looking uncomfortable. In recognition of her service, her bravery, and her inadvertent but profound impact on interspecies relations, Earth is creating a new designation, a rank that acknowledges both capability and the burden of representation. Indira paused for effect. "Lily, please step forward." She did, her legs steadier than they'd been in that council chamber, but her heart still racing. By unanimous vote of the Global Assembly, you are hereby designated as Legend Rank, the first human to hold this title. This designation comes with authority to represent Earth in diplomatic matters, access to resources for projects you deem worthy, and the responsibility to serve as an example of humanity's potential. The applause was deafening. Lily accepted the ceremonial medal, a beautiful piece showing Earth and the stars beyond, and tried to find words that didn't sound completely inadequate. "Thank you," she managed. "Though I should point out that I mostly just didn't want to die, and everything else kind of spiraled from there." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Indira smiled despite herself. "But if this title means something, if it actually matters, then I want to use it." Lily's voice grew stronger. "I want funding for xenobiology programs. Real funding, not scraps. I want support for human students trying to integrate into galactic institutions. Scholarships, mentorship, resources. I want us to stop acting like we're lucky to be included and start acting like we belong." She looked directly at the cameras, knowing her words would reach beyond Earth. "And I want better coffee on Orbital Station Helix 9, because what they're serving now is a war crime." More laughter, but behind it, Lily saw nods of agreement, saw the wheels turning in political minds. She'd learned something in the past 3 months. Fame was currency, and she'd accidentally become very, very rich in it. The negotiations took 2 weeks. Lily sat across from ministers and administrators who'd spent decades in politics and refused to be intimidated. She had something they needed, legitimacy in the eyes of the galaxy, and she wasn't afraid to use it. In the end, Earth committed to tripling the xenobiology program budget, establishing 10 new scholarships for underprivileged students, and creating an integration support network for humans in galactic institutions. Also, better coffee. That was non-negotiable. "You're terrifyingly good at this," Hugo told her after one particularly brutal negotiation session. "Have you considered a career in politics?" "I'd rather fight more Zolmoth warriors," Lily said flatly. "At least they're honest about wanting to hurt you." But she was good at it. Turned out the same stubbornness that had gotten her in trouble her whole life made her excellent at refusing to back down until she got what she wanted. 6 months after the incident, Lily returned to Orbital Station Helix 9. It was strange, walking those corridors again. Students stared at her, whispered, asked for photos. She was famous now, recognizable across multiple species. Some aliens treated her with reverence, others with fear, and a few, mostly other humans, with the kind of casual irreverence that reminded her she was still just a person who'd gotten really lucky and really stubborn at the right moment. The lecture hall had been repaired. New doors, fresh paint, upgraded security. Dr. McHale was still teaching, though he'd started including a section in his syllabus called Practical Conflict Resolution, which was basically code for what to do if you're taken hostage. Lily wasn't there as a student anymore. She was teaching. "All right, settle down," she told the packed classroom. Word had spread that she was offering a self-defense seminar, and apparently everyone wanted to learn from the human who'd taken down Zolmoth warriors with improvised weapons. The class was wildly diverse. Humans, definitely, but also Kelthians, a few insectoids like Coral, who'd become a close friend and was sitting in the front row looking proud, and even two young Zolmoth, which had surprised everyone, including Lily. "First rule," she said, pacing in front of the group. "Don't fight if you don't have to. Seriously, running away is a completely valid strategy." Someone in the back, a human student who looked far too eager, raised their hand. "But what if you can't run? Then you use what you have. Your environment, your knowledge, your spite." Lily grinned. "Let me tell you about coffee-based combat tactics." The class laughed, but they were listening, really listening. She taught them about pressure points for different species, about environmental controls, about thinking creatively under stress. But more than that, she taught them about not freezing, about trusting their instincts, about standing up even when it was terrifying. After class, one of the Zolmoth students approached her hesitantly. "Miss Lily," he said through his translator, mandibles clicking nervously. "My people have been taught to view humans as weak, as newcomers, unworthy of respect." He paused. "You changed that. My clan now studies your tactics. We respect your capability." Lily felt something shift in her chest. Not pride, exactly, but something close to it. "We're all just trying to survive out here," she said. "Your people, mine, everyone. Maybe respect shouldn't be about who can fight better. Maybe it should be about understanding we're all doing our best." The student considered this, then clicked his mandibles in what she'd learned was a gesture of agreement. "Perhaps, but it helps that you can fight very well." Fair point. That evening, Lily sat in the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars. Coral joined her, settling his chitinous form into the seat beside her. "You seem contemplative," he said. "Just thinking about how weird life is," Lily replied. 6 months ago, I was a nobody. Now I'm legend rank, whatever that means. I've got responsibilities and expectations and people watching everything I do. Do you regret it?" She thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," she said finally. "I didn't ask for this, but I'm good at it. And I can actually make things better. More students like me are getting chances they wouldn't have had. Humans are being taken seriously in the galactic community. That matters." "Plus, the coffee improved dramatically," Coral added. "That alone made it worthwhile." Her calm chimed. Another situation requiring her attention, another diplomatic crisis, another opportunity to prove humanity belonged among the stars. Lily stood, stretched, and allowed herself a small smile. "All right," she said to Coral. "Let's go see what disaster needs fixing today." "You truly are incapable of relaxing, aren't you?" "Probably. But hey, at least I'm consistently me." She walked toward whatever came next, No longer the scared student who just wanted to survive a boring Monday lecture, but not quite the legend everyone seemed to think she was either. Somewhere in between, maybe, which was fine. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy not with overwhelming technology or ancient wisdom, but with stubbornness, adaptability, and the fundamental refusal to quit when things got hard. Lily had shown them that. Not because she wanted to, but because when the moment came, she'd stood up. And she'd keep standing up, for as long as it mattered. Because that's what humans did.